Hello everyone, welcome back. This is episode 11 now of What Does It Take podcast, and today we are joined by Dr. Emily Wilkinson because we're going to be talking about nutrition today and all aspects of nutrition. So I'm really excited to get stuck into this one. But yeah, Emily, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Emily Wilkinson. So my education history is that I have a master's in human nutrition, and then I have a PhD in appetite psychology. So I kind of cover all bases from the biochemistry of nutrition, then also to how we think and how we feel about food, how that affects our relationship with our bodies, our relationships with food. So myself and my husband own a gym. So I work both with clients from the gym and then also with external clients as well. And I tend to specialize more in things like disordered eating practices. I've got a couple of clients with eating disorders and then other things like inflammatory bowel disease and other diseases related to things like IBS, stress-related diseases, allergies and intolerances as well. And I also bodybuild. So I don't work with bodybuilders, but I am a bikini athlete, hence knowing Georgia and Matt.
Yeah, when did you guys meet?
So it's weird, isn't it? Because we kind of started talking a little bit before the FitX show, which was May in 2021.
Yeah.
And I remember you and a few others, I remember showing Matt like pictures. And I was like, oh my God, they're so lean. You know, when you compare and you think, but we got to, because I remember I put a little group chat together to like make friends with people and things because I'm so nice. But actually, the day I got so stressed I didn't even say hello to anyone. And I remember
No, you didn't talk to anyone.
I literally, because external variables just made me very stressed, and I had like, that was when we had to tackle anxiety. Anyway, then I had to message you and be like, I'm so sorry, I wasn't asking you. And ever since, like, I literally, like, me and Emily are just like proper, basically sisters from
Sisters from another mother.
Well, it's brother from another mother, but that doesn't work because we're women.
Literally, Emily's the only person I actually speak to every single day. I don't know how we find things to speak about. I don't speak to anyone that much other than that. But we basically just talk about dogs and dog walking. And you've helped me through my preps, and now I'm going to help you through yours because you're about to go through yours. So, yeah, it's one of those things. You do find you form relationships more so in prep with people that are going through prep at the same time as you, and then you fizzle out when you're kind of done with prep because you were both like doing the same routine, or your friends, or whatever it is, and then your routine differs because you come out. But with us, we've got a good routine with each other as well as our own lives, that we know when we talk, and then it gets to a certain point of the evening and it's like cut off, and then we just restart again in the morning.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that is basically our friendship.
But it's a good one.
It's quite funny actually.
Yeah.
I actually remember that prep, so FitX prep, and this is a nice little compliment for you, Emily. I don't know if George has told you this or not. So she does sometimes go on there. We both fall for the trap.
I don't do it now though.
She is a lot better now, but looking up people and saying, oh no, look how good this person is. And I'm always like, don't worry about it. You look better than her. You look great. She showed me you, Emily. I was like, oh yeah, she's pretty lit. She looks pretty good.
Yeah, but so it's really weird that you say that, because I think Georgia was the first bikini girl to get reposted on the FitX Instagram page that said she was doing it. And I remember going on to Georgia's profile and being like, oh no, her legs are so much better than mine. I was like, look at the size of her glutes. So yeah. But I think that just goes to show like how bad we are as athletes at comparing. And then actually it really doesn't matter, because we might have come in with completely different physiques, but actually we became like best friends. So there you go. That's a nice little story.
Yeah, and completely unrelated to the podcast straight away, isn't it?
Yep. So we've started well. Yeah.
We go again.
Back into the subject. Yeah. So anyway, Emily is literally like the perfect person to talk about this because, yeah, she's very, very knowledgeable about what she does, but she also competes in bodybuilding. So it's literally perfect for our audience and listeners, really. And we're going to sort of dive into 3 main topics today, and we're going to try our best to try and stick to those. But we probably will go off on a few tangents as well. So one of them is how your gut health can affect your hormones and vice versa, how stress and sleep can affect your digestion, and mental health and nutrition, and particularly post-show. So all of these things are really relevant to people that want to build muscle in general and live a happy, healthy life, but also for competitors and optimizing basically their environment and their bodies to make sure everything is running as smoothly as possible. So should we get stuck into how stress and sleep can affect your digestion first? That's definitely your specialist subject, right?
Yes, yeah. So I don't know how much people know about hormones, but if we just do sort of a brief overview, when it comes to stress and sleep, there's three main hormones at play. So when you are particularly tired or you're going through a period of stress or any related emotion, so it might be sadness, it might be loneliness, usually it's something negative, we tend to release two hormones in abundance. So that's cortisol, so the stress hormone that I think most people will have heard of, and then also ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. So both in combination cause you to have a heightened sense of appetite. So potentially feeling the need to eat outside of hunger cues. So it's psychological hunger rather than physical hunger. And you tend to then crave the higher fat, higher sugar foods because essentially your body wants an immediate source of energy. And of course, now we live in this environment where we have high food availability. That means you can reach for the chocolate, you can reach for the biscuits, for the crisps, whatever your go-to thing is. And at the same time, that stress or that tiredness suppresses the release of leptin, which is your satiety hormone. So it's the hormone that basically tells you to stop eating. So in combination, if you wanted a scenario, say you were at a buffet and you had loads of food in front of you, you'll get your plate, you'll fill your plate with the food, the amount of food that you'd normally eat. You might pick foods that are what we would deem as unhealthy just because you have these cravings because of the cortisol and the ghrelin. You'd consume it all, and then whereas you'd normally not go back to it, you've got lower levels of leptin, so there's nothing to say stop, so you go again. And because this food is there in front of you, you tend to not stop until you either feel sick or you just really, really feel full or the food's taken away from you. So from an appetite perspective, sleep and stress are the two things that can really, really impact you if you are trying to lose weight, lose fat. So if you're going through, in bodybuilding, if you're going through a prep. And that's one of the reasons why I'd expect most coaches to ask about sleep and stress, because it can be one of the really big variables that can affect how your body's responding to that prep.
That's really interesting because I'll be honest, I did not actually know it affected your ghrelin and leptin hormones, like stress levels can affect that directly. So that's something I've learned straight away, which is really interesting. And sleep and stress is something that the vast majority of competitors do go through to some degree, a down regulation of sleep, and your stress does tend to go up. So is that physical and mental stress, or is it more so?
Yeah. It's both, and that's what you've got to consider, because you, especially if you're somebody that has quite a stressful job anyway, and then on top of that you're going to put your body through additional physical stress, and you're not going to give it the nutrients it needs to properly recover because you can't have that many calories. You're just layer upon layer adding to this response, this psychological response. So it becomes harder. And it's not to say that you can't override those feelings. So we've all prepped. We all know that when we get really hungry, we just have to not do it. But it just makes it harder and harder. So if you know that you're going to get heightened physical stress, if you can keep other stresses at bay, so if you can make sure that you're going to do a prep at a time during your working life where hopefully there wouldn't be any additional stresses, or even like things like home life, if you can really try and manage preps around things that you know are going to affect your stress levels and your sleep levels, then you're always going to have a better prep.
Yeah, this was why I was really excited to talk to you, to be fair, because everyone knows like how to get in shape at the end of the day. Everyone knows how to get shredded. You're just in a calorie deficit, right? Eat less, move more. But there is definitely a more efficient way to do it. And that's the difference. Coaches will look at all these variables and try and optimize everything as best as possible. Whereas like I don't mean to disrespect anyone, but someone that's less educated or doesn't pay attention to these variables will just drive that person into the ground to try and get them shredded instead. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that hard or that unenjoyable, because at the end of the day, if that's a first timer, and it could be an easy fix of looking at their stressors and trying to reduce some of those rather than nail them into the ground, it's going to ruin their first time experience of competing. So all these kind of things definitely should be taken into account, and it's definitely interesting there. So have you got any sort of tips and tricks? What's your tips and tricks for your clients then to help manage your stress variables and sleep as well?
So for me, it's more around awareness. So a lot of my clients, the stresses they have are not necessarily things that can go away. So particularly when I'm working with parents, they have the kids' stress and they can't just get rid of that. But it's this awareness of how it affects their body. So like I said, I'm not working with bodybuilders, I'm working with lifestyle clients, but we can map it out. So we know that that the stress, heightened sense of emotional stress because of family will do this to your body, and therefore we don't need to worry if you didn't lose weight that week, but we need to track it over a longer period of time when that stress level comes down, and then we make changes going forward. And I think this, from a bodybuilding perspective, this is where having a coach that you've worked with for a long time really comes into play. So if you decide that you want to prep and you suddenly jump in with a coach and you go straight into that prep, that coach has no idea how your body's going to react. And unless you are really clued up and you can give that information to your coach, then you're going to find that you get to the point that you're, say, not losing weight because all that stress, and it's not necessarily because you've eaten more food, but actually it's because you're holding more water because of the stress. So your weight doesn't come down and your coach starts to panic and you start to panic, and then you start making changes which then add more stress to your body because you've put more cardio in, you've cut more food, and actually all you needed to do was wait a week for those stresses to subside. But my real tip would be to plan ahead. So as much as possible, make sure that whenever you know you're going to go through a prep, you've really done everything you can to take away any future stresses. And they're always going to pop up, but just have that awareness around them and be aware of what that can be doing to your body and to your appetite.
Yeah, you're massive on that.
Oh my God, I swear, my girls on the team, because obviously I predominantly have a lot of lifestyle, and then obviously between us we have prep clients, but I swear if they could slap me, they probably would. Because I talk about planning, but it's because, like you say, just plan. It sounds like such a silly thing, and they go, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. But it's not until they actually take that time to do it, and then they go, oh my God, I feel so much better. Because you allow these thoughts, and it's like it just turns into like a big black spiral in your head, and then it creates more stress because you're overthinking, I've got to do this with the kids, and I've got to take this kid somewhere, and I've got my husband doing this, or I've got to get to the gym at this time. And it's like, map out everything that's going on in your head, and then when you break it down, I'll always say to them, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, give yourself like even just a bedtime routine, and a bedtime is going to automatically, your mental stress, because you know what you're doing when, is also going to correlate to the fact you're going to have a better sleep because you're mentally unwinding, knowing what's going on. So I give them planners on their like sheets that they have to fill in and color coordinate, or they write it down pen to paper and send me pictures. And honestly, when are you meal prepping? When are you doing your steps? When are you working? When are you doing, like, plan time with the kids? Plan, doing stuff with your family still, factor all that in. But because you've planned it all out, it's like you've got all these thoughts that are just racing around in your head that's making you stress. On pen to paper, you can visually see it, and you can just breathe and be like, okay, I know what I'm doing, and now just tackle one day at a time because you've written it all out. And I think as well, the biggest thing is we can get so stressed about things that haven't happened, that you can't control, and all those things. And so I'll be like, okay, let's break it down. What are you stressing over today? Is it you've got an exam coming up? Is it the fact you've had an exam? Like, think about, what can you control? So you've got an exam coming up, so you're going to set in revision times, you're going to work out what you're doing, go through a syllabus. Is it you've done the exam, you can't control anything, you've done everything in the lead up to do it, now you have to accept that is now beyond your control. And it's hard to sometimes get rid of that stress to that degree, but when you do break things down, what can you control? Okay, how are you going to then control it, and then control that stress? To what can you not control? We have to learn to try and move forward, because you can't control it no matter how much you stress. You're just stressing twice over because you can't stress about it, because you can't control it. So it's just breaking things down logically, having a plan. And like I said, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, and say it to all of the girls all the time, but planning, even some of them even plan their partner's life, because they're like, that something else might happen with them, and I'm like, well, you plan it for them. You can't control. It's like that thing of, you can't control what life throws at you, but you can control how you're going to react. And that's what it comes down to. Stress. You can't, yes, things are going to happen, you know, kids might be poorly, you might not be able to get to the gym that day, but how you react to those things, take it as an extra rest day, control your nutrition, have the steps.
Yeah, so with lifestyle clients, we'll look at it as goals versus values. So your goal in this instance might be that you're trying to lose weight, but your value is your family. So can those two things coincide, or is one going to have to take priority over the other? So, I mean, obviously, always going to put your family first, but are you going through a period of time where actually your goals can be up there as priority because your partner can help you more with the family, or things are just in a routine, so that's going to work fine? But then when your value then has to become priority, so say a child gets sick, so you can't go to the gym and train, or you didn't get chance to go food shopping because you had to look after them, then actually just, it's okay, don't worry about it, because we're just going to go through a period of time where your value is a little bit more prioritized, and then we just take a step back once you're in a position to do so. Because I think you get so many people that fall off plan, that then get so stressed and worried, that then lose sleep about it, and then it's just a vicious cycle downhill. But if people can just accept that this is life, this is okay, it's much easier to then move forward. Bit more difficult if you're bodybuilding and prep and you're on a timeline, but then that's also that sacrifice that you need to be willing to make as a bodybuilder, because we are in an extreme sport, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I find that oftentimes that can even cause more stress for a competitor if they have that timeline in place, which we all do, and you're in a prep environment. Obviously, you've got less hours in the day, essentially, because you've got to do all your cardio, you've got to do all your training, and that can cause a lot more mental stress there. So yeah, handling that and definitely planning ahead if you're a competitor. If you're a first-time competitor thinking about going for it, honestly, planning ahead is one of the best things that you can do for sure. So that's kind of like an environmental factor that you can control. Emily, do you recommend certain supplements for people to help with their stress management and their sleep?
Yeah, so I mean, I use, am I allowed to mention brands? Can we mention brands?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, okay. So I use Strom Support Max Neuro PM at sleep. So it is for cortisol management, so it's will help you relax. I find that really effective, but there's a lot of different sleep supplements out there. We've tried Sleep Stack before, which is from Supplement Needs. Within the bodybuilding world, there's a few different types. They've all got very similar things in it. They just generally have different levels, so it's finding something that works for you. But beyond taking the sports supplements, things like magnesium can help. And then anything that's relaxing, so you'd like the lavender smell, so the candles or the pillow sprays, anything like that can be of a benefit. And then beyond supplementation and things that you can take and things that you can add to your room, just generally having that bedtime routine. So like Georgie says, like write things down, make sure you've got the plan for next day so it's not on your mind. Make sure that you're allocating time to relax in the evening. So when you are on a prep and you have a lot of things to do, it's easy to plan your day so you're literally finishing at 10 p.m. and you're in bed by 10:30, and it's just not enough time. So actually giving yourself like an hour to unwind, get off your phone, get off the blue light so that you can have a decent night's sleep. And a lot of times it's just finding that routine that works for you, finding those supplements that work for you. And it's not, we can recommend, but it's also individual, that it's hard to say that this will definitely work. So just keep trying and eventually you'll find something.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think finding something in that bedtime routine, going back to that doesn't stimulate your mind too much. I'm a nightmare for it. Like I'll play games pretty late, and G always tells me off for playing games. But that's one thing, absolutely a big no-no that you should try and avoid if you're trying to improve your sleep. Stimulating books as well, weirdly. Like a lot of people say, you know, reading before bed is a good habit. But for me, for example, I can't read anything that's like mindset books or motivational books or like self-development, because I'll just want to start doing those things and then I can't sleep. So it's something that can, basically allow you to unwind before sleep. And like you said, like blue light and things like that. I've not done any research into that, but apparently, blue light is meant to be quite bad for sleep. I don't know if you know much more on that. I've just heard it's bad. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just about your melatonin levels. So you just need to give your body chance to know that it's nighttime. It's like being in a bright environment, essentially. So these sleep lamps work really well. So the one like children tend to have them as well. So it's dimming the light when it's nighttime and then brightening the light in the morning. So your body gets used to a circadian rhythm, essentially.
I've heard about those. They are meant to be really good. And going back to the supplement side of things, so yeah, Emily mentioned a really good one there. So yeah, they've usually, like you said, they've got the same sort of ingredients in, and it's usually 5-HTP, which eventually does convert to melatonin. I think it goes serotonin and then melatonin.
Serotonin, yeah.
And then that basically allows you to sleep. I don't think I've looked at that. I don't think you can buy direct melatonin in the UK, can you, to help you sleep?
I don't actually know. I think you can. I think you can get it prescribed, but I don't think you can buy it direct. But you can you can get 5-HTP tablets just from places like Holland and Barrett. So it's the tryptophan in that then converts to serotonin. And if you think about serotonin, it's like your happy hormone. So it's the one that helps you chill out. Also, the one that we release when we eat carbohydrates, which is why carbs are good.
So yeah, that's one of them. Ashwagandha is usually another one as well, and that is a good supplement. I usually recommend that to most clients when they start up anyway, because it's cortisol management, right? It can help you sleep, and there's been some studies to show that it can naturally help boost testosterone, which is all good things within a bodybuilding scenario.
Take it within my stack.
Yep, I have it as well. Do you have it, Emily? Oh, you would have it in your sleep stack.
Yeah,
right?
and yeah.
So ashwagandha is a fantastic supplement. So yeah, again, you can buy that separately. If anyone wants to, try and do things in a cheaper way, you can buy all these ingredients separately from Amazon. But it's usually just convenient if you buy it from a brand like Conta do one, Supreme Sleep, or there's loads of different ones, and it usually tastes better if you do that as well. So yeah, that's quite a few different ways to help with stress and sleep. I think we covered that topic pretty well, actually. Do you have anything else?
Yeah.
Should we
no, I'm good.
Oh, smashed it. Right, so the next one, how your gut health affects your hormones and vice versa. So this is something that I've put quite a lot of time into learning recently, because again, just, I'm a bodybuilding prep coach. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, I want to make sure everything is in the most optimal position possible for all of my clients. Sometimes it's not about just hammering them into the ground. It's about, well, it's never about that. I don't do that. But it's about learning their body and trying to make sure that everything is primed in the best way possible. So your gut health can affect quite a lot of hormones, and some people don't realize this. So it can affect your estrogen, your progesterone, and your thyroid function as well. And we all know that thyroid is extremely important within prep to actually allow you to lose fat. So yeah, there's quite a few different aspects to that. I don't know if you want to touch upon that, Emily, but I can go into, how it can potentially be affected by your gut health.
So it depends what you want to say, but basically, we have so your gut contains your microbiome, which is all the friendly bacteria. So there's trillions and trillions of bacteria that live in your gut, and it's still quite novel research. So we still have a lot to learn about it, but some people are now calling it almost like your second brain. So we have what we call the gut-brain axis, and it's how your gut and your brain talk to each other. So that's why keeping your gut happy and healthy is so important, because between your gut and your brain, everything in your body is controlled. So not just hormones, everything. So we're talking immunity, digestion itself, all your enzymes, hormone function, everything. So maintaining health throughout that, from a bodybuilding perspective, but just generally for anybody, is that the more optimal we can be, then the more optimal our bodies will function. So it comes down to, if you have a good, diverse population in your microbiome, you're going to digest nutrients better, which will allow your body to thrive better, which will allow your body to make the hormones it needs to make, which will allow the enzymes to do their job, everything. So this is why it becomes so important that we're focusing on our gut health as well as just our general well-being and our physical health. It's such an important factor to optimize your life.
100%, and that's why there's so much more to it than just eating your macros and your micros for the day. There's so much more to it, especially for people that do just chase their macros. Like, it is important to get your macros in. So yeah, a few things I've learned recently, which I didn't know. Again, I sort of do coach a lot more females now in the bikini space, and females do digest foods a lot slower than men. A lot of people don't realize, but that is oftentimes why, especially during the menstrual cycle, at certain points during the menstrual cycle, females report, the feeling of bloating, gassiness, things like that. And it can be all down to their hormones. So progesterone actually affects your digestion and slows down your digestion. So that can have an effect as well. But yeah, basically your microbiome, they found that estrogen does, I've got all my notes here.
I can tell.
Absolutely love this subject at the moment. So estrogen can directly affect your microbiome, and basically you do metabolize estrogen through your digestive system. So oftentimes, if you do your blood work, right? So this is what's so great at the moment is everyone can get their blood work done, right, through private labs. We get the blood results back, and if we say a few markers are out, the bad things about a lot of private labs, they'll tell you that it's out and the effects that being out of these markers could have, but it never tells you how to fix these markers. And some of them, a lot of them, can be down to your digestion, including estrogen. So your estrogen is actually excreted through your digestive system. A lot of it can be. But if your digestive system's not in a great way, you can actually reabsorb a lot of your estrogen. So that can be an effect. If you get your blood work back and your estrogen is high, that could potentially be down to your digestion. Which I think is really, really interesting. So that's definitely something that needs to be taken into account. And again, like, what is good gut health? Like, what is good digestion? It's not a very nice subject, but oftentimes it's your poop, right? You got to have good poop.
Well, in one end, out the other end, isn't it? So
yeah, so that is definitely, one of the ways that you can tell you've got good gut health. Emily, is there any other ways that people are running, everything's running smoothly and you're in a good way? Is there any other ways you can tell?
it's generally how you feel. So you'll feel it in your stomach if your digestion is off. So you might have constipation, you might have diarrhea, you might have significant bloating. So it's more knowing it's off is usually discomfort, and it's what's personal to you as well. So if you eat a big meal, you are going to be bloated. That doesn't mean there's a problem with your digestion. It means there's a lot of food in there. So it's being aware of where the threshold lies. So what is normal for what you've done versus what is abnormal. Yeah, basically it's just how you feel. I don't know what else to say about that one.
That's
but
right.
There's ways of improving your digestion, and that is then when it comes down to nutrition. So the key is fiber. So we need to eat enough fiber, and this is where prep can start getting a little bit difficult because we start cutting back on foods. So a lot of the carbohydrates we eat contain a high amount of fiber as well, particularly if you're eating the brown version, so whole grains, brown pasta, brown rice. And as soon as you start cutting that back, you start cutting back on fiber. If you are somebody that is cuts back on your vegetables as well, cuts back on fruit, all of these things are going to start affecting your gut. And it's prebiotic fibers. So prebiotic fibers are the big ones that are going to really, so they are essentially what the probiotics, so the bacteria, want to feed off. And we tend to find quite a lot in things like chicory root fibers, onions, anything like that's got quite a high amount of prebiotics. So when we start pulling those back, that's when you can start feeling this effect. But then also you have a lot of people that live with IBS or IBS-like symptoms, IBD, so anything that's inflammatory, that then food can trigger those. So being aware of that as well, because when you have a trigger of inflammation in your gut, your digestion is going to suffer.
Yep. Fiber is, like you said, it's the key to fixing quite a lot of things. And again, a lot of people don't realize that. And that, again, it just comes into effect. Like, that's why chasing just macros to reach your physique goal isn't always, the best thing to do. You need to take into account everything. So going back to the estrogen scenario, the only reason why you might reabsorb your estrogen is because of basically a bacteria that develops within your digestive system. And the only way to lower that is to actually eat more fiber again. And do you have a sort of a rough gauge for how much fiber someone should eat in a day? Is that around 25 grams?
Yeah, 25 to 30 grams.
Yeah, so that's sort of that figure to aim for. Even in a prep, it's actually, like, it does get forgotten about fiber a lot in a prep, but it's actually still really easy to get in your diet.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say eat your veg, like that's the important one. So when you're pulling back on fats and carbohydrates, just make sure that your veg is maintained at a sensible level. So generally, the greener the veg, it's usually the lower in calories. So if that's what you're really key at looking at, then that's what you should focus on, but make sure that you're still getting a variety. So ideally we'd be getting a lot of colour and a lot of variety, but if we are really in the heart of prep, just make sure that you're getting enough variety within sort of the green types of vegetables. And if not, so if you don't like them, or if you just really struggle, then there are supplements available that you can have that will top it up.
Yeah, so would you agree with greens powders and stuff like that then? Would you say it's just as good as having vegetables?
It's not just as good because you don't get the roughage that you get. So your intestines, your gut is a muscle. So it has to work. So just like you have to work your bicep, otherwise it wastes, your gut needs to be worked as well. So you really need the bulk, and that's what gets pushed through the intestines. So any of the greens powders, because they're liquids, you're not getting that initial bulk that's going to go through into the small intestine. But saying that, it's still better than not eating anything at all. So it's trying to find this balance. So I would always say food first with everything, but supplement when you need to. So if you don't get enough of whatever it is from the food, and whether that is because you just don't like it, you don't enjoy cooking it, or you have a diet that you restrict. So if you don't eat, if you're vegan or if you're vegetarian, there's something that you're not having within your diet, you don't like fish, whatever it is, then that's fine. Take a supplement.
Yeah, so it's like the old saying, then just take a supplement to supplement your diet. It doesn't ever shouldn't ever replace a diet.
Yeah, ideally, yeah.
Okay, makes sense. So yeah, well, basically that's just one hormone. So estrogen, that's how that can be affected. But also the thyroid. So we all know what the thyroid does basically, and it's really important that we're basically keeping that in a good, healthy position as we go into prep. Yes, you can take additional things like T3 and T4 to help the function, but it's always better to try and have it naturally in a good position. Like even not in a prep scenario, you always want your thyroid function to be good. And anyway, poor gut health can lead to some autoimmune disease such as Hashimoto's, and basically that does directly affect your thyroid. It attacks your thyroid essentially, and that down regulates your T3 T4, which will basically mean that you can't eat as much food because your metabolism slows right down. So again, that all comes down to your gut health, and vitamin deficiencies can cause autoimmune diseases. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, lifestyle factors, stress, which is what Emily sort of specializes in, that can cause things such as dysbiosis. You probably know about dysbiosis, Emily, yeah?
I know bits about dysbiosis, yeah.
So basically, it affects the microbiota that we were talking about earlier, and it can essentially affect it so much that it reduces the amount that you can absorb, including your vitamins, which in turn will then, or could potentially lead to autoimmune diseases. So a lot of people that are pushing hard in prep that aren't getting really good results, all of this could be going on in your body. And unless you investigate it, you just won't know. So it's really important to sort of take all of this into account, and that's why it's really important to have your nutrition in place, and just don't go for macros. You need to be able to eat your vitamins as well, your micronutrients, and look after yourself in terms of stress and sleep. It all links together, and if you get everything running smoothly, you're going to have a much better time. So a lot of that's a lot more common than you think as well, and I looked into it. So autoimmune diseases and things like dysbiosis is a lot more common than you think. It actually affects more women than men as well, which is pretty crazy. Maybe down to the fact that women take longer to digest things, or maybe they get stressed out by their husbands. I don't know.
I think so. Things like women who they tend to be, well, obviously they're the ones that give birth, and then they tend to be the key caregiver within relationships, and they might also have to work again. So this is where stress starts to affect digestion too. So that's why you tend to get, in the research, you tend to see more women than men, is that we're just more stressy basically.
Especially when I'm late for the gym every day.
Yeah, we've got more going on, right? We have our schedules and we like to stick to them.
Literally cannot. This goes back to planning. When you plan your partner's and your husband's life, and then the curveballs that come in is the fact they just move like a slot.
Or they just have no realization of what time really is.
Go to the gym at 10:30, 10:45. What are you doing? And he's like, oh, just need to get my shoes on. Half an hour later.
So we swiftly move on. So I think we covered that subject well, and how your hormones can be directly affected by digestion as well, and it all sort of interlinks. So the last subject we want to talk about, which is sort of more George's specialist subject. I know she's been quite quiet up till now, but this is definitely where she's excels, I would say, is mental health and nutrition, particularly around sort of like post-show period. Because you've been through it, right? You've been through tough times post-show, and I'm sure you have, Emily, as well, and you've experienced it. And I would say that in general, females suffer a little bit more than guys do, from my experience anyway. I know guys don't tend to talk about things, but in general, like girls, we all do it. We get really lean in prep, we're chasing that perfection of that condition. And then to go the other way, for girls, it's kind of within our society, it's built in that girls don't want to be bigger. So whereas guys, we want to be big.
You want to be massive, yeah.
Exactly. So it does. That's why I think it's a little bit harder for females. But yeah, this is a massive subject, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just the way it's a different thing, isn't it? Like post show or reversing, or even if you've done a photo shoot prep or whatever, you spend so long trying to get lean. But the difference is, like, obviously it's not to stereotype all guys and girls. Some girls just can't wait to get huge, and some guys don't want to lose their shreds and stuff. But as a whole, most guys tend to pack on weight quite well, whereas girls, we do tend to have a lot more when it comes to hormonal health and holding water, and then digestive issues, and our bodies don't tend to always recover as well, depending how hard your prep was. So that can be mentally quite challenging as well as physically, to see things. And obviously guys can eat more, they generally can, whereas girls, we can't. We do tend to finish on very low calories and sometimes quite high cardio, whereas guys as a whole can get away with just eating a lot more without getting bigger. So then they just go, let's keep eating more. Whereas unfortunately, at like prep or not, we can't eat as much as men, no matter what we do in a grand scale of things.
No matter how hard we try.
So we can, but we'll screw ourselves. So
say physically,
I can definitely eat more. The way we kind of process food and everything, generally we can't. So on the back end of a prep, we do want to eat more. Our stress is higher, obviously, as we've touched on stress with the hunger hormones, with everything else. We do want to eat everything, and then again, it can all kind of have repercussions on itself, can't it?
Yeah. So, and I think with women, the key indicator of health is, do we or do we not have our periods? So we can't say that prep is healthy. It's not. It can be as healthy as possible up to a point, but those final few weeks, the chances are you don't eat enough, and you certainly don't eat enough fat, so you're not producing the hormones that you need to produce. So a key indicator for females is to get your periods back. So you have this goal that is a health goal that should take priority, but then you've also got this underlying feeling of, look how lean I am, and I don't want to be massive. I don't want to suddenly feel uncomfortable in my clothes. And I imagine most of us are the same. We kind of have these two wardrobes, but there's that period in between where you are too big for your prep clothes, but you are too small for your peak off season clothes. And it's really hard. It's really hard to get through. And we have all been through it. So I went through it quite badly in 2017. So that was my first proper prep. I got very, very lean. And then coming out of that, my coach at the time, I think he was trying out a rebound diet. So my calories went really high really quickly. And I really struggled, mainly because I wasn't used to eating that amount of food. But then also there's, for so long, there's all these different foods that you wanted to try that it's restriction. And as soon as you are suddenly allowed to eat those foods, you just want to go and have everything. But at the same time, you've got this battle about, but I don't want to put on weight too quickly. And as much as we can give tips and we can tell people how it might be best to handle things, or what they could try, I think in a way everyone needs to just go through it, because I genuinely don't know any females that haven't been through it if they've competed.
I always say prep is for a purpose, and that's the thing. It's not a lifestyle thing. You're doing it for a point of looking a certain way for that one day, for that 5 minutes on stage, and it isn't healthy. but obviously you're doing it to prove something to yourself, the journey, everything as a whole. So, you know, you weigh up the pros and cons, but it's going in knowing that, and then, yeah, coming off the back, it is about health. And then also knowing that, so what I do with a lot of our clients, because obviously we do have competitor clients, and obviously coming from a female perspective, is I never want to, I know I've touched on this before in other podcasts, never want to poo-poo show day, because I want you to be excited for show day. But the more information I can get you on how your post show might be, because to kind of get an idea of it, but like you said, until you've done it, you don't know. But I didn't know my first show. I didn't have someone tell me you might feel like this or you might feel like that. So if I can throw in all the possibilities of how you might feel, and don't have any guilt if you want to eat everything, do talk to me. You know, you might want a slow reverse, because mentally that's going to be better for you. But we might want to be like, you know what, we need to regain your cycle, so let's do this. It might be the fact you want to go from having a plan to tracking macros. You might want to go from tracking macros to having a set plan for structure. Like, the way, knowing you've got a few options, and I think that's the biggest thing, is you go in thinking, I'm going to absolutely nail it, I'm going to stick to this, I'm going to do that, and it's going to be fine. And then you get 3 days in and you're normally pretty, you're like, I'm nailing this, and it's normally towards like 5, 6, 7 days, you normally have one kind of off day, and then you just spiral, and then you have all these negative things and you can't regain. And knowing you can speak to someone and knowing it's absolutely fine, let's readjust a plan. At the end of the day, it's just food, but let's have that, let's think about all your thoughts, let's think about, you know, what is making you feel like this, and how can we incorporate whatever you might want to eat, and how can we pull off that restriction but give you that like consistency and accountability. It's so many different things, but it's making sure, you know, you don't just punish yourself and then feel bad for it, because especially within bodybuilding, and it's something I've been touching on a lot of, like, especially in my post recently, within bodybuilding we get so caught up that everyone's physique is abs and lean and things, and you forget actually, like, a healthy, happy body has fat. You're not like me. Abs aren't sustainable. Abs are not. I've proven I can find them, but they're just gonna pop out for the last 2 weeks of prep probably, and then they go back in.
And I think this is where social media has a big role to play, and how much value we put on aesthetics. So when I am, you know, a few weeks out from a show, so take last prep, I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks out from a show, and it was quite hot, and I was on a Stairmaster, so I just had shorts and a crop top on, and I had my six pack, I was silly lean, and I felt like death. Like, I felt horrendous because I was so hungry. It was first thing in the morning. I'd literally just got out of bed, put my hair up. I was sweating. And someone came over to me and they were like, "Oh my God, you look amazing." And I was like, "But I feel like shit."
Yeah.
But now I'm just about to start prep. I haven't started yet. So I'm, you know, almost as big as I got. I'm a little bit smaller because we went on holiday and I did a little cutback from that. But that's something you don't hear as much, mainly because, you know, it's cold, it's winter, I'm wearing baggy stuff, so things are hidden. But I feel great. Like, I feel the best I've ever felt. But you don't get those same compliments because we put so much emphasis on what someone looks at. We value so much about aesthetics, and we need to stop. We need to start valuing actually how we feel. So I don't know, I can't tell how other people are feeling. All I know is what they tell me, but I know how I feel, and I should always be trying to get to that point of feeling my happiest and my healthiest, and that's where that value needs to be coming out of a prep. So if you are slowly reversing your diet, you're prolonging that feeling of not feeling good, and prolonging those like need to eat the cookie and the cake, then actually that's your mental health is in a really bad place, and your body, your physical health is still in a bad place. And that's where, so personally, I would say jumping at least straight back up to maintenance is a good idea. And if you can, try and get into a surplus as quickly as possible. And it doesn't have to be outrageous, but to be somewhere where you can, if you're really keen on sticking to a plan or to your macros, that you can fit in the cookies and the cakes that you want, but you're still within sort of a sensible number of calories. That's where you want to be, because you'll start feeling good about yourself. hopefully you'll be in a better place in terms of health. But also, like, we're bodybuilders, we need to build our strength back up, and that's how you're going to do it. So why waste time slowly doing something and continuously punishing yourself for no real reason other than somebody might make a comment about how good you look because you've still got abs?
100% agree.
It's something I've been speaking a lot more on my Instagram about it, because the biggest thing is we put pressure on ourselves to look a certain way out of what other people are going to think of us because we now don't look lean. That's literally what it comes down to. But at the end of the day, whether they think that or not, it's none of their business, because you're thinking about your health. So why withhold your progress? And I always stated as well, my coming off prep, like, you see a lot of people going, I'm going to grow now, and it's actually like, hang on, no, you need to focus on your health. You are going to recover from your prep. You're going to bring back tissue you most likely lost throughout the back end of your prep, and then you will grow. So I kept saying my first few months was a recovery phase. It's, looking after myself. And you, like I said, you can get so caught up, especially if you're in a gym environment where, people have seen you getting lean for ages. You've been, definitely post the pictures. You're doing something that a lot of people can't do. So, post all those lean things and, be proud of yourself for that. But also be proud of yourself for the way you handle things afterwards, and don't pull back on fear of what other people, because I remember we've had a client before and she brought back a healthy level of fat, and a PT in her gym who has never done a bodybuilding prep, doesn't have a bloody clue, said to her, which fuming, but not to stereotype as well, it was a guy who's never done anything, he said to her, oh God, you've put on some weight, haven't you? And that is why girls especially get worried, because guys pack on weight and they're like, mate, you look massive. But a girl puts on weight and it's like, oh, you've let yourself go. It's like, no, they're just now not lean. Like, it's like I said, I had abs, but I will never be someone that will have abs full time. So, I want to, that's something I preach about a lot is, do you know what, instead of thinking, oh my God, where's my delt gone and where's my vascularity gone, and how about, oh my God, I can sit down for 2 minutes because I now have my butt back, I'm not sitting on bones. I can go to sleep, and I can sleep a full night without getting up or without struggling to get to sleep. I can go out for food with Matt and think, do you know what, even just go to a Nando's. Before I couldn't do that, because obviously not only are you restricted with food, but like Matt said, your whole day is consumed by prep. Like, you can now be a normal human again. Like, think about those positives. And like you said, normally off the back end of a prep, you've got these goals to be like, right, I now want to grow. And you won't grow if you're prolonging. You've got like a 4 or 5 month prep. If you're going to do a slow reverse, that's then going to lead to a 6 month, 7 month prep, because technically you're not pulling yourself out of it as optimally as you could. And then you get a lot of people that compete back end of the year and then they want to go again next year. So you've actually prolonged your reverse, your recovery, shortened your building phase, which again, as a natural athlete, you're not really going to grow that much if you're not giving yourself that much time at all, to then come back to the stage the same and with probably messed up hormones.
Down regulated thyroid. Yes, 100% agree. I'm actually glad you said that, Emily, to be honest, because some people do try and do that really slow reverse out the show, and it really makes no sense. Like, everyone agrees being stage lean is not healthy. So why prolong being in that state? You don't want to do that. You want to get back to a healthy body fat position as soon as physically possible. And I have worked with people in the past, and I have heard people say in the past, they don't want to gain fat. I've even had some people say that they don't want their cycle back, but you really need it. Really need it back, because some people just see the cycle as I bleed once a month. There's a lot more. There's a lot more to it than that. You need those hormones to build muscle. Even estrogen actually helps you build muscle. You want to have that. So,
but it's not just that, it's bone health. Like, your risk of osteopenia and osteoporosis, if you're not having your cycle at the age that you should be having it, just goes through the roof. So when you hit menopausal age, you're screwed unless you've looked after your health earlier in life. So, and I think that's one of the issues as well, is we think so short term, because when we think of within the bodybuilding world, you've got your off season, improvement season, whatever you want to call it, and you've got your prep. So we're constantly thinking this phase, this phase, this phase, this phase. But actually, you're going to have to start at some point thinking about longevity, because you're not going to do this for the rest of your life. So making sure that you're still putting in place now those things that are going to keep you healthier for longer is really important. So yeah, with bodybuilding, it's not the healthiest sport, but it doesn't have to be unhealthy all year round. We can, it should just be those last few weeks of that prep, and then during your actual competition season, and then putting all those things back in place that are going to improve your health as quickly as possible.
Yeah, 100% agree. That's why a lot of people, which I fully think is great actually, is especially female competitors, are taking more of a year on, year off approach. So they're giving their bodies a whole year to sort of recover and be normal before thinking about prepping again, which I think is a really good thing. Especially at the high level, to be fair, they don't think long term oftentimes, do they? They just see these pros trying to qualify for the Olympia. They get qualified earlier on, and then they keep doing split seasons. And it does come into a little bit your risk to reward ratio. Obviously, they're taking higher risks there. They're not thinking about longevity because they are getting a big payday at the end of the day. But at a grassroots level, when you're just getting into bodybuilding, is it really worth putting your body through all of that? It might be worth, taking that step back and giving your body time to recover, and really focusing on nutrition to help that.
Yeah. And I think at the pro level, these people are doing it, that's their job. So they're living and breathing bodybuilding. But at the level that maybe we're talking about, you have other things going on. So as much as you may want to live and breathe bodybuilding, you're probably not quite there. So, and that's where, again, it's all those external factors that are contributing to stress and lack of sleep and everything like that. You don't have the sponsors to give you all of the health supplements that are going to help you, and it gets quite expensive. So you've got to separate your own experience and where you are versus all of the other competitors that are on the same level as you, and all of the other competitors that are a higher level than you, because we're all in different situations. We're all individuals.
Yep, 100% agree on that. Cool. I think we covered that pretty well as well, didn't we?
So I think it's mainly, when it comes to mindset, is knowing that don't put pressure on yourself at all. Definitely don't compare to anyone else. Sometimes even a social media detox, because you might be following so many people that you've competed with, and they'll be posting that everyone posts about how well their reverse is going, and it's very rare someone posts if they fuck up, and you feel like you fucked up. But everyone does. 99.9% of everyone, they do something that they fucked up, but they're not going to say it. I mean, I think I've said it before, like I overate, my digestion's a mess, like, because I want to be transparent. Things happen, you're human. But sometimes when you are trying to reverse and you see a lot of people still holding abs, because you're still going to have those genetic people that are freaks that have these abs and they look insane. But when you have a bit of a detox, the people you competed with, if they are making you feel a little bit worried, you don't have to unfollow, just like hide pages or whatever, and fill your page with happy, healthy bodies of people getting strong and they're quite active, and some new meal preps that, like, now I've got my air fryer, I'm getting crazy with air fryer things. I love it, like, honestly. But they're healthy, different meals that it's going to give you that variety. Change up your page a little bit, because what you speak into your mind and what you visualize and what you see is going to have an impact on the way you have that perspective. There's a thing about it there, but basically, speak positivity, and what you see and what you're feeding your brain, you're going to put out as well. So if you're seeing a lot of people with abs smashing their reverse diet, looking absolutely insane, and you're scrolling through of an evening when you've probably overeaten on a few chocolates and you've got your bloated belly, which is natural of an evening, everyone has a belly of an evening, you're going to have that guilt and you're going to feel worse. But if you fill your page with happy, healthy, fitnessy, new meals, even like just something else you might have an interest in, something that's going to feed your mind with that aspect, that's going to be a big mindset thing as well.
Yeah, and I think just remembering that it's normal. So food is designed to make you want to eat it, because we need to eat food. Like, we are humans and we need food to survive. and it's meant to taste good, and we should enjoy food. That's important, and it's normal. And I think understanding what normal is, and the fact that you're a bodybuilder, makes you a little bit different, because you having 5 chocolates of an evening, you might be like, oh my god, I've eaten so much, when that's so normal. Like, it's so normal to have a whole bar of chocolate, and it's so normal to have an extra serving of cake. That doesn't make you a fat person. It doesn't suddenly make you unhealthy. All it does is means that you've given yourself something that you enjoyed, and that's okay. So it's just, understand what normal really is, and understand that you can switch your focus and you can switch your goals. So wouldn't it be nice if we all came out of prep and actually then our goals became strength related goals, rather than just sticking exactly gram for gram to a macro plan and still feeling awful for doing so. So just trying to find that balance of bodybuilding and progressing within bodybuilding, but also enjoying your life, because life's short. Like, you've got to live it. And if that means having that slice of cake with your coffee when you go and meet your friends and not feeling guilty for it, perfect. Let's do that.
Yeah, what I do with some of our gals when they're reversing out is have a snack buffer. So basically, if they want to follow a plan because they need that, because obviously I always say the world is not going to end because you ate some food. Like, it really isn't. Food is flipping amazing. It is what it is. As long as you don't waste your calories on crap, eat donuts, god damn it, because donuts are amazing. But at the end of the day, like, the world isn't going to end. Yes, it can easily spiral if you go like, oh, I've had 1 donut, 2 donuts, 3 donuts, 5, and then the next day gone, oh fuck it, I've ruined it, I'll just have another day of do hold yourself accountable to reach out for help if something isn't working, but at the same time, like, allow for those foods. So I might give the girls like a 300 calorie buffer, and I'm like, while we brought their calories up, I'm like, okay, so you love these foods, you've got all your whole foods, and we bumped up your calories, but do you know what, we've given you a buffer. You have that chocolate bar, have that slice of cake, have that flexibility every day of something that you want, while having that control, and mentally it sometimes helps. But like I said, there isn't a one size fits all. It's about how you feel and making sure you communicate with that, and knowing nothing is ever the end of the world, but it's as long as you talk to someone to get that help, that you can keep moving forward from it.
Yeah, and if you are really struggling and you are finding that you almost have no off button, then that's exactly, you need to talk to people. So in first instance, make sure that you're communicating with your coach. And then if you need further help from that, it's, there are tools out there, and that's where I would specialize more, is then looking at things like breathing spaces, mindfulness, different things that you can think about in that moment when you're craving food, that can help you pull back or assess whether you really need it or not. And then other coping mechanisms as well that you can use, that will satisfy you in the same way that food might do that. So it's just, again, it kind of comes back to what we would define as normal. So are you just overeating because you have restricted for so long and now you're just hungry and you're just wanting to try things? Or are you actually really binging from a psychological sense? So is it going more into the realm of disordered eating? And if that's the case, then there are people you can reach out to and talk to who can help you before you then go back into a prep or go back into a dietary phase, to make sure that your relationship with yourself and your relationship with food is in the best place possible.
Yeah, very good point. So there's quite a few take-home messages there for sure, but I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said, basically just analyze what is actually normal, because being surrounded by bodybuilding, which you really do that in a prep scenario, almost everyone does it, you fully immerse yourself in the industry, you do have a kind of a skewed sense of what is now normal. You don't realize that, like you said, just having a few biscuits in a prep scenario, you can't really do that if you want to get in stage shape. So afterwards you think, oh no, I can't do that now, but you're not in prep anymore. Like, it is normal to have a few biscuits, and that is okay. It's absolutely fine. So I think, like you said, like we touched upon, getting yourself to a healthy body fat percentage as soon as possible, and realize that is a good thing to do. Change your perspective and your goal from just a physical, aesthetics point of view to getting your health back, looking for strength goals, things like that. And then if things do go maybe a little bit too far and you do really, really struggle, like Emily said, there are people that you can reach out to for help.
Like Emily.
Like Emily.
Like me. Yes.
So yeah, there's quite a few things you can do there, and you're never alone in post-show period. A lot of people do struggle and kind of like bottle it up, and they don't really talk about how hard they do struggle. So like we said, you know, talk to your coach, and yeah, reach out to people if you do struggle, guys. So yeah, I think we covered that pretty well. Is there anything else that you want to add, Emily?
No, I think that's good. Good summary.
Smashed it.
Perfect.
Right, okay. I can summarize, but I can never end a podcast.
Go on then.
Oh no, it's the sign-off time.
I'm rubbish at this. Is George's bit. Go on, George, you got it.
So obviously you can, Emily, do you want to say your Instagram so they can find you?
Yes, so it's at ESA Wilkinson PhD. If you'd like to reach out, you can DM me, and I also have a website which is www.emilynutritioncoach.co.uk, and there is an inquiry box there. So if you click on that, you can arrange a phone call with me.
Perfect. And if you're in the Macclesfield area, remember to check out.
Which no one knows where that is. So Macclesfield's just south of Manchester, by the way.
We'll have to come up for a session at some point in the year, won't we? We're going up that way for a bit. I think we've got clients competing up that way. So
yeah, I think you do. I'm a bit sad you're not wearing your AW hoodie, Matt.
Oh, he lives in it.
I know you wear it all the time. I see it all the time on Instagram. It makes me very proud.
I'm a representative, mate. I always do my best. This one, actually, this is a new hoodie, and I don't know if you noticed, I've shaved my hair recently, and it's fluff on it, this one, so I'm going to have to switch back to the AW hoodie, because I never collected fluff on that one.
Yeah. And on that note, so my gym is AW Muscle and Fitness. So if anyone is up in the Northwest area, if you're in Manchester or anywhere like that, then please feel free to pop in.
It is a very good gym.
Fun fact with, was it lockdown 3? What year are we now? 2023. So 2022 January, because we're from Cornwall, we specifically moved up to that area just so we could be near Emily, so I could go see her and use that gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's friendship, guys. That's real friendship.
I'm just waiting for you to move down here now.
No, I mean, although the weather's better down there.
But yeah, so that is everything. So hopefully you have found this useful. We will get another podcast. We're not too sure what the next topic is going to be. So if anyone wants us to cover anything in particular, drop me or Matt a message through Instagram or through YouTube. And yeah, that's about it. So we'll get to work. Matt will decide what we're doing next with the podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for coming on, Emily, and speak to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.